Salut coders, this is Bisk here. Welcome back to another tutorial. In this tutorial, we want to focus on Quarkus, an introduction tutorial whereby you are going to learn Quarkus step by step. Let's say you are a Spring developer and you want to learn Quarkus in this 2025. This is the one tutorial that you'll be waiting, and I have to deliver everything. So if you're a Spring developer and you know Spring framework, and this tutorial is also good for you. If you're a newcomer from other framework, from Nest.js, other Go frameworks, Python framework, Flask, you want to learn Java, and this tutorial is also good for you, and you are going to cover the basics like introduction, creating a REST API, connecting to a database, a simple database, how to connect to Postgres, and how to explore the Quarkus extensions. And you are going to use the Swagger also. I'll show you how to use the Swagger. So while this framework is better than others, comparing to traditional frameworks like Spring framework, take a look of Spring framework as traditional frameworks here, and you can see the memory usage of Quarkus is very low. If we are using Quarkus and GraphVM, I know Spring guys, you are now supporting GraphVM, but it's too early to compete with Quarkus because they started a while ago. So Spring, it's still its own beginning, and Quarkus is now mature in terms of GraphVM. So I'm no longer buying an expensive server. I'll buy a server that is a like 8 gig memory. 8 gig memory can support my application. But for Spring guys, if we want to deploy these microservices, let's say 16 of them or 20, you are now thinking of 32 gig. So that's why I'm saying we need Quarkus, because I just talk about memory. We also talking about the rest. So let's say you restarted your project right now, and the project in your like in the cloud, you restarted the service or you deployed your service. It takes maybe 5 minutes for the application to be stable to start accepting requests. So we can't use that framework. There was a project that I was working, I think 2 years ago. They opt to choose Nest.js because of fast startup. For traditional framework like Spring, you have to wait 5 minutes. Why waiting so long for it to start receiving requests? So for Quarkus, it's just a second. It is fast startup, and also it can start receiving requests as soon as possible. Then, so I mentioned a lot of things here. Fast startups. What's really happening with Quarkus when you say fast startup? We are saying when you just run your service in Quarkus, we are taking of milliseconds, and you can look here. Here you are looking of 9.5 seconds, but here less than a second when it's running GraphVM. So Spring, they are trying also to run their application in GraphVM, but some of the dependencies, most of them, it's a lie, most of them, they are not working. Try to convert your Spring Boot project today, like your Spring Boot, to use GraphVM. It's a headache. Some of the dependencies won't work. So I'm just giving you advice. So if you have low budget and you want to use a framework that is modern, cheap to use, fast startup, you can use the Quarkus. And in terms of documentation, Quarkus has a good documentation, although there are a lot of documentation that are there for Spring framework. But here we are talking of Quarkus documentation, which is much better as compared, because each extension has its own documentation, and people are trying to contribute every day by contributing to this framework. So it's modern, so don't worry. And also, it was designed for the cloud. Listen, it was designed for the cloud. This framework is also good when you are deploying your application in EKS clusters, Kubernetes, Docker, and it's very good and you don't have to worry about many things because the application is also have Docker files created for you, so you don't have to learn how to build a Docker, how to write Docker file. They already did it for you. So what we need to do now, let's start creating a Quarkus project. To create a Quarkus project, it's much easier. Let's just say start coding. That's where we come here. We come here, and here we put our, you can say, home code with Bisq. I just say let's leave it like code with Quarkus. We are going to explore many things, and I'm going to use Maven. And what about the dependencies that we can add here? So if you can, we are free to share what you think, and I can reply in the chat for those who are viewing this tutorial. And we are going to cover a lot in Quarkus. I think almost some of the weekends we are going to have like live streaming with doing Quarkus and explore this framework until we all understand this. So for me, I was familiar with Spring, and the one I love this framework because of my familiarity with Spring. There are also Spring extensions. So yeah, I would just say a Spring Web. That's the one that I was using before. So I can say Spring Web. Let's look for Quarkus extension from Spring Web. I think this is the one that I clicked here. And there are also frameworks that I need. I also have extension for Spring Boot. So if you are familiar with Spring Boot extension properties, you can use this one. So for this one, I just want, and also you can use Quarkus extension for Spring dependency injection, like you use services components. So let me just pick this one also, and we'll test together while I'm developing this project with you. And I'm familiar with, I'm used to configure my application with the YAML. So in Quarkus, there's a dependence that is for YAML. Let's see, we can add this Quarkus YAML configurations. So I can take also this one, and we need also the database JPA. So I can say JPA, and I want the one for Spring because I'm familiar with Spring. So let me look for Spring JPA. I'm looking for Spring JPA here. This one, Spring Data JPA. Let me take this one. Yeah, so I have Spring JPA. So what I can do with these dependencies, let me just create a project, and we can add more dependencies in the project. It's easy. I will show you. And let me just add the other one that is for Swagger, I think. Okay, we can edit later, and these are the ones that I have. We can edit later, so I can generate this application code with Quarkus, and I can download the zip file. So the project has been downloaded. So let me unzip the project and open it. So what I want to do, I have IntelliJ here. I will open the project in IntelliJ. Open a project, and I go to downloads. And the name of the project that I just created, it's code with Quarkus 4. I'm looking for the filtering. Code with Quarkus 4. I just want to open this. Open with XML. And I want to open as a project. I just want to open the POM file. Okay, so this is our Quarkus project, and Let's just explore what is in our Quarkus project. So it's now, let's look if it, yeah, it was syncing. So this is a source. You know, if you are working with Java, everything begins in the source folder. And here, these are the Docker files that you can use to build your Docker image. So you don't have to learn all these Docker, how to write these Docker files. So this is the, for the JVM, the traditional one that takes more memory. So we don't care about this one. What we want, what we need when you are deploying on cloud, that causing a lot of problems to Spring, guys, is this native, which is a faster and a fast startup. So then what we need to do in our Java project, again, we have this controller with say hello Spring. So we need to test this one, and here this is our resources where we put our configurations. Here it was greeting message. If we come to our controller, let's see, this is just a properties where it was saying greeting message, but it was not used in this project. So to start this project is simple. What you need to do is just click this run, and you will see it start. By first time it will download some lot of things here. Okay, it has started, and you can see it's running on this port 8080. You can see this is our first Quarkus project, and it's easy. So if you go to this UI, you can see a lot. When you connect to the database, you see our database will be here. For Hibernate ORM, you see this. For endpoints, you can see we only have this greeting, and you can see if I click this greeting, it's a low Spring. So there's a lot of things that you don't have to learn or to, you just have to explore this framework. And you can see their dev UI, it's much easier to use. So our, so since our application is running, so the request goes to these greetings, and the application runs on port 8080 and going to a greeting controller where it's saying greeting, and we are getting a response, hello Spring. This is happening here. In our controller, you can see it's greeting, and this is the get method that is being called. So if I say Spring, hello Spring test, right, and send a request again, you can see I didn't restart the application. So what's the power of Quarkus? You don't have to restart your application if you make any change. So it's a hello Spring test. So it's an advantage also, fast development time if we are using this framework. So what else do we have to do now? In our project, if we come to our project, I can, this one I don't need it. So this is just a simple example. Once you start a Quarkus project, you just have the application running, and with a simple REST API developed for you. And it's a, and if you are familiar with the Spring, everything will be REST controller. And this is our method is a get mapping, because when you are developing this REST API, there are many methods that are there, and we have post. So for post, you just say add post mapping, right? And let's do an example, and I can just say public, just say, let me just say string create. So if you are creating a new object, you use it post mapping. So then I'll just say hello test. But when creating an object, you need to send a request board here. To send a request board, let's just create a new class. But right now we are now in Spring. We are now in Java 21. I'm using Java 21, but because of introduction of records in Java 17, we can use a record. So let's say you want to create a greeting, that just a greeting request board. I'll just say greeting request, and I will make it a record. From here, I'll just say string greeting. It's okay. And in my controller, let's just say it request at request body. And I just want to return the request that we are going to send, the message that a user has sent. So by doing this, this is now a post mapping. So in post, we are sending a request and say someone, and you are sending a request in the request body, and you do your logic. Either you're saving a user, you're creating whatever what you are doing. We explore many things when you in the future tutorial where we are continuing with persisting. I will show you how to use Hibernate from the basics up to advanced topics of JPA. So here I created a post mapping. So for a put mapping, it's also the same. What I can do is just say here, we just say put mapping. So we can use this one when updating. So what I usually do, if you are saying greeting, maybe you want to update a certain record in the database, you can just say it ID here. You want an ID from your API. So what I can do, I can just say you need to look up. So here I just say it path variable string ID. So this ID is the one that we are going to send in our request. So here I'll just say ID. This is the ID that we send here and we want to print it. So if we want this ID in one, no, let's leave it like that for now. We can leave it like that. And we don't need to restart this. If I do this, everything is okay. Now we have three APIs. We have the post, we have the post, this is the post, this one. So the post, you can't click it because it requires a request body. So for us to test this post and greeting for pod, we need Swagger. So let's go to the Quarkus extensions and we want to add the Swagger, and I'll show you how to use it. This framework is much easier. And let me remove this code, and I want to go to browse extensions, and I want to search for Swagger. So let me just use this Swagger and this one. So to use this Swagger, we can add the extension easily. Let's try to add it through Maven, or if it fails, I don't know if everything is configured well on my computer. I can try. Let me just go in this terminal and I can add this in Maven. You can see the extension has been added. If you go to our POM XML, we have Swagger added. This is the Swagger dependence that was added just now. So for this Swagger, so let's see to now, because we now have Swagger. So what else left? You don't have to configure many things if you are working with this framework. So if I come here to this greeting, this is the greeting. So here I'll just say q/swagger UI like this, right? The problem is that I think because it's a new dependent that I just added, I think I need just to restart this. Let me just restart it. So, okay. So let's go to the extension first and you will see more guide here. So here I have Java installed, everything here, setup, and we want to see when accessing this maybe we have this one, which is Q open API. So let's try this one and we can see what's going to happen. And localhost Q, okay. Here we have OpenAI API providing all these things. Okay, let's wait a bit. I just want to stop this one and try to see if everything was imported correctly here. Do we have any issue here? We don't have now, and we want to test if everything's going to work fine. I don't know why Swagger is failing to and you want to look for the UI and this is going to be our URL if you want to access Swagger. And let's see here. Now it has started. Okay, so let's see why. Maybe let me try to enable in the application here. Swagger it's enabled by default to true. By default it is enabled. So if our dependency is not working fine, let's see here, because it was supposed to open like this here. Oh, sorry, let me reopen, close the tab. I don't know what's really going on. So we can go back to our extensions if the problem still persists. Let's see in my extensions. If you know what's really happened, what I missed, you can let me know. Swagger UI open. Okay, so let me try to edit this dependency, which is a small rally. Let me try to add also this one and try to see is it going to work fine? Terminal, I'll add also this one. Okay. Okay, we have added this one. I just want to try to restart this one. If that one doesn't work, we can have another option. So it worked after adding this one small open API. So make sure you can use this one. The Swagger is filled without they require also this extension. So after adding this extension, you can see here I can have access to my API that I created. So here this was the get, and we can try out and we can get the response that we are seeing. And the response is this one, hello spring test. And for the post, if we try our post here and we can say try out, and here we just say hello code with Bisky. So I'm expecting to have a JSON body similar to that one. You can see it's getting hello code with Bisky. And for put, let's try what I told you. For put, we added a path variable which was an ID. I can say, and the ID is 23, and say hello guys. And from here, I'll just say execute. You can see it's just written hello guys. And if you go to you can see it written ID 23. This is the ID that we passed in our path variable. So you can see to integrate, Quarkus with the Swagger, it's much easier. You don't have to do many things. In those few steps, you are able to add Quarkus, to add Swagger dependency. So to add extension in this framework, it's much easier. So what about a simple extension? I'm talking about a Postgres. Let's look for Postgres extension. If you think of an extension here, come to the extensions and search the extension that you want. So I just want to look for JDBC driver PostgreSQL. This is the driver that I want. So here I'll copy this one and you can go to the guide, and that's where you see how to use this dependency. So I'll add this dependency here and go to terminal. In my terminal, I'll just paste it as it is. So by adding this extension, we now have database connected here. Then we now have Postgres here. But so far, if I try to run this project, let's see what is going to happen. No error is going to happen right now. It will run fine. Okay. Okay, the problems that there is we must have Docker installed, because it looks like I don't have Docker in my computer, because right now it's using default configurations. Let's see if I open Docker. If you do not have Docker installed, can you have Docker installed in your computer? So you can install Docker. If you don't have Docker, install Docker. Go to Docker download page and choose based on your operating system. Based on your operating system, you can download Docker based on your operating system, and everything will be fine, and you can install Docker. For me, I have it installed, and also I have some of my containers running here. I have Postgres and what. So here, let me try to run this application and see what's going to happen. Since I have Docker installed, it just ran and created test containers for this Postgres, and it's just for images for Postgres that it uses. So for testing, if you are just testing, so yet for this to work now, it's easier. I just want to create a new package, and I call it entity. I just want to save, let's say, data, and the name of this thing, I just say user entity. Let's say you want to save your entity, and here, because I added this dependency, which is a Spring, let's just say JPA. I added this one, Spring Data JPA. So because I'm using this one, I can just say add entity here from Jakarta, and it requires an ID. So let me add an ID. And for me, I don't prefer IDs for long. I prefer string. So here my ID is a string, but I need to add it generated value, and in my generated value, oh sorry, I don't know why it's speaking generated value, and here I can just say strategy. The strategy that I want to use is UUID. So if I create a new record in the database, it's supposed to be a what? A UUID. So here I will just say private Or let me rename this to greeting. I just want to rename it to greeting just for now. Greeting entity. 50 F6. And here I just want to say a greeting. It's not making sense what I'm doing, but I just want you to understand the concept. Then in future tutorials, we can go step by step how to create, to model a proper a proper database with the proper relationships, and how to retrieve this data when we are developing a small project, as an example. So what we can do now, I have this greeting, and I just want to generate getters and setters. And I'll show you how to use Lombok in the future tutorials. So right now I have greeting entity, and if I run this project, let me just run this project. Because right now I'm connecting to a test container. You can see here when it's running, or it was logging. I can't see the data in that. If I try to save this thing, we are not going to see anything. So what I want to do right now, because you are just saving it in a test container, I want to create a repository, new package, and I call this one repository. And I create a greeting repository, new greeting JPA repository. And it's supposed to be an interface, and this interface extends JPA repository, and it's a greeting entity, and our IDs of type string like this. Yeah, okay. So we have our greeting JPA repository. So what we can do now, I just want now to go to my controller. I'm just being lazy. I don't want to create these services. I just want you to understand the concept first. So here we just say private final, and I'll just say repository here, and let's create a constructor. So from this constructor, from this constructor, this get mapping was returning just one. So I just want to return list of greeting entity. So I just say return repository.find all. So it will return everything from our database. Right now, I just say get all greetings. Right? I think this one, it's simple and you are understanding this. So let's talk about saving. From this request body, I just want to save the greeting. If someone greets us, we just want to save it. And I'll just say greeting entity like this. And I just want to save the message that the user has greeted us. And I say greeting request dot get greeting. And here I'll just say repository dot save. Now we are saving this data into our database, and we just retain, let's just retain void. We don't want to retain anything after I save something, right? Then if we update something, we need to fetch that ID if it exists, and we can update the record void here, And what I need to do is just say repository dot find by ID, which is the ID that we passed here, right? We find the item by ID. Then if, let's say, the item does not exist, we throw an exception. I will just say, for now, for simplicity, I'll just say new runtime exception, greeting not found. But I will show you, I don't prefer this this way of updating. In the future tutorial, I'll show you how to update things the best way and most with better performance. Greeting dot set greeting, and here the same way that we did above here, and we just updated. It's from greeting request dot get greeting, and here we can save. We are now saving this thing, and the record has been updated. So if the ID doesn't exist, we throw an exception. So here we need to save. It was going to be an exception, and here it's supposed to be greeting. We want to save based on what the user sent. So what I can do now, let's go to our Swagger. That's why I wanted to have Swagger running here. So let me just reload. So let's just test greeting and see I just want to test how to get all greetings here. Try out and execute this. And you can see our array is empty. Let's create a greeting, and I can try out here, and I can say, hello, reviewers, right? And I can execute here, and there's no error. And I told you we are not returning anything. So let's try to execute again, get greetings. We are now have one element in our table, and the ID which was created is this one. That's why I told you you need to use UUID as a generated value to create. So if you are coming from the old guys who are developing application the old way, they are mostly use long, like auto increment. But we are now in 2025. Why those long? Why? For security reasons, also it's difficult to remember this code. So let's use UUID in your application. So if I want to update this record, here it was hello viewers, and you can see here I created it was hello viewers, and it was a wrong spelling also. So let's update it because it's a wrong spelling. That's not the proper way. So I just need to try out here, and I put the ID, and I'll say hello viewers, and I put exclamation. If you compare with the one that is here, there's no explanation. And let's update this one, and it has been updated. So if I come here and click create, you see this one was there before. So let's execute here, and you can see we have updated the record. So we have a problem that we have here. If I restart the application, let me restart the application. And I restarted the application, and I come here, and let me execute again. Oh, it's not yet started. Our database, our record, the items that we're saving, it's now empty. The table is now empty. What happened? Because we are using a test containers for Postgres. We need to have a permanent database. So if you don't have you must have a Postgres running. So here I'll just say download Postgres based on your operating system, so that you can just connect to a Postgres. So if you are using Windows, you can install it. Mac OS, you can download it, no problem. just download the dependency. You can use Homebrew to install it. It's fine. I don't care. So if you have it, for me, I have Postgres running on Docker. So that's why you see this one that is running. I have Postgres here that's running on Docker. It's running on port 5432. So if you want to run a Postgres with Docker, if you read the documentation for this Postgres, I think there's somewhere they were talking about running it on Docker. Let's see. So you can also use now it's simple these days. You can use ChatGPT and get a command to run this Docker image since you have Docker installed in your computer. So what I can do, I don't want to to take much of your time. We are about to close. So because I'm using this data JPA, so this JPA you can connect to all these type of database. For me, I'm using Postgres, so I need to connect to the Postgres. So what I need to do is I'm using Quarkus. You can just say Quarkus data source. The DB kind is going to Postgres, and you put the username and password of your database, and here you can put the URL to your Postgres. If you have your Postgres running in cloud like AWS, you can put your AWS URL. You can get it from AWS, and you put your database, and everything will be working fine. So this is easy. So what I want to do, remember, I told you before that I prefer to use YAML. Here, okay. By default, I have the YAML. So the YAML has been configured by when I added that configuration. So that's great. So what I need to do now, we need to add a data source, Quarkus data source, and the data source that data source and DB kind is going to be PostgreSQL. I think it's correct. PostgreSQL, and we need the username and password. So if I come here, username, for me, I think my username it's kicklock, and the password, I think it's password. I think it's the one that I set up on this on the which is running here. I think that's what I put there. So I can stop this one, and what we need to add now is the URL, JDBC URL. So I can do this JDBC URL, and I can come here and JDBC URL, and I can add this URL in the database. Let's say Hibernate URL, or I just say greeting, the name of the database, greeting. That's what I want, right? But if I try to run this application, because I stopped this, you see, when I stopped the save, the test containers were deleted. So if I try to run this, it will say that this database does not exist. Let's see what is going to happen here. Yeah, greeting database does not exist. So I need to create this greeting database. So I have data grid. I use ID products. So most of the things. So I create a new project, and I would say Quarkus here. And I want to create a new data source here. There's a lot of things that you can learn here. PostgreSQL. You can see localhost 5432 and user. My user is Kicklog. So when you set up your Postgres, you can put your username and password. And here, my password was password. So you can just, the one that you used, I just say greeting, right? And I can test connection here. Yeah, it is connected. So since it's connected, let's wait for this thing. And I want to create a new database that is called greeting. Now I am creating this database and I click OK. So let me start my application again. So here, let's see, do we have any error here? So let me go here and see what's really going on and see if there's anything created here. I will choose my database, which is and I'll refresh. And the name of my database is greeting, and I'll pick greeting. And this is my database, and it does not have anything here. So what I need to do, let's go to our documentation. We want to, and we need we want it to update, to create the tables for us automatically. So I'm looking for the configurations. If it's there, where is the configuration? Database kind here, it's okay. And I can see here failed schema validation, missing table greeting entity. So let me look how it can JDBC Quarkus. I'm looking for the config for create drop. Usually it is create. So here, let me go here. The configuration usually it's for, let's look for this configuration. I think it's data source. Let's say data sources. I think is this one. And let's go to the guide. Create or a drop. Okay, control F. Create. I can't remember. Or a drop. No, it's not. It's not here. JPA. Create or a drop configuration. So there's a config that I want here. Let's see if it was added here in the properties from Baudin. This is how I debug my code most of the time, but it's not here. What's the name of the dependent? I forgot that config. It's Hibernate ORM. This is the configuration that I was looking. Quarkus Hibernate ORM. And let's restart the project. And we want to have our tables created. So we shall have some tutorials of you creating them using Liquibase, and you can see the error is gone. So let me just refresh here. So if I go to this public schema, you can see we have one table, which is creating entity, and the table is empty. So let's test with our Swagger how we can save and see our data there. So, and in our UI, and I told you before, we can explore this dev UI here. So let me just reload this dev UI, and we explored that we can have our data. We can see our data. You can see here, this is our data. So you will see our data here very soon. So what we can do, let's use our Postman and let's save our data. Let's first by posting this like what we did before. The data has been saved, and let me reload here. You can see hello viewers. So let's now try to edit that one with the correct spelling. So if I click get, I can now get this data. We can see 63D is the same as which is this one, and we can update here. Let's just update. If I update here, you can see it was hello viewers. If I reload the right now, maybe I didn't execute here. Okay, the ID is incorrect because we are now using another, and there was an exception. If you look here, there was an exception here saying that entity does not exist. It's because of that we added. So now it's success. If we reload from our Postgres database, you can see it has been updated. So we have covered a lot of things in this Quarkus project. We have do some basics of REST, saving data, getting data, updating data. Let's meet on another tutorials where we are going to explore many things in this with this Quarkus. So before I go here, if you want to change a port, it's easy. What we can do, we just say port Quarkus HTTP port. It was running on port 8080. I can say now my application can run it on port 4500. Then I will restart the application. So after doing this, you can see our application can run on this port. So if I reload here, in my experience here, it's because the port has changed. I can do this now, and you can see everything is working fine. So let's meet on another video tutorial where we are going to explore many things with Quarkus, everything that you learned from Spring Framework, and we are going to explore most of the modules that are there in Spring Framework and how we can implement them in Quarkus. And I will show you in the future tutorials how to use this Vertex in our when we are creating our API gateway, which is going to work the same as the one that is in Spring Cloud, which is Spring Cloud Gateway. Let's meet another video tutorial. Salut coders.